All right. Okay. This stream should be up by now. Hopefully you can hear me. Just gonna have this impromptu live stream up because I want to do a little bit of exploring in Rome. But first, let me just lower my music. Okay. While I'm just setting this up really quickly. Just posting on Twitter at the moment. Okay. All right. OBS should be fine when it comes to posting this, but with that being said, let me just test out some of the camera works because I have 3 sources. I just want to make sure that if you are watching this, I have 1 camera right here, and I have the screen share, which I'll probably do in a bit, but I'll just increase the size just for both our sakes because I think we'll be exploring this a little bit. Then later on, because I wanted to talk about table of contents, I thought I could share a book that I want to explore later in the future. But I'm really taking my sweet time with exploring that book. So I have my phone set up on my table so that later on, once we start annotating or adding marginalia into the book, then I will have the book in front of me and we can write upon it together. So quite excited for that. Hopefully this is happening. And if so, we'll just get straight right into it. So let's try it. Okay. Move back to here. Right. Welcome. This is a quick live stream. It's 11 p.m. right now for me, and I am about to do a little bit of free-form roaming, free-form exploring on the following 3 topics, which is table of contents and creativity, and also how to learn something new. There's some connection in there, and I've been having a bit of there's an itch, sort of like the precursor to a potential link reference in there somewhere between those 3 points. And I was inspired by the creator of RomeStack, Ramsey's Twitter thread recently on outliners, and I guess I contributed a little bit of it because I was seeing how powerful outliners were in terms of how you can see the power of outliners in the table of contents in a book. So I thought I would want to expand on that later on. So with that being said, hopefully this will be fine if you can see this right now, and we can just go straight into it. So clear warning, I am a huge user of Room 42 jump navigation, so don't mind me if you'll be seeing me slamming my keyboard keys down a lot because I'm going to be navigating a lot as I'm going through all of these without my mouse. So don't mind me if I'm just jumping around different places. Anyway, so I wanted to focus on these 3. This, and also these 3 points. So what we'll do is we will workbench MBT to the DMP all the way to time stream, and we'll be back here. So what you just saw just now is, if I open up here, what you saw just now is me clicking TF, which is on the left sidebar, it's the forge. The forge is basically supposedly the index of everything that I've created, but it's super messy. So GTF, and you'll see, you know, what all these are. Try my best not to use my mouse. So I have these finish these tab right here where I have notes that I really want to finish because I've been having an itch over them over time. And I had those notes just now that you saw, and I workbenched, moved those blocks to the daily notes page, nested under a block, so that I can focus on them for this live. So pressing escape, then we go GG, because standard GG goes back to DNP, or basically standard goes back to daily notes page. And I will go to my time stream, which is basically where I put the block that I just edited just now. Just put the time right there, just for cleaner's sake, and focusing in on here. So that being said, let's start exploring. Now, I already have this on my sidebars, how to learn something new and how to train your creativity. I had the inspiration for these two. Actually, let me just pin this. I had the inspiration for these two. The inspiration for these two from multiple standpoints, from Ramsey's Twitter thread, yes, as well as a recent coaching call that I did for a client. So as part of the Super Learner coaching cohort, sometimes I coach and advise people on how to learn and, like, to the best of their ability. Of course, that comes from a very memory and memory palace and speed reading standpoint, but then this was more on training creativity, because part of actually building stuff like memory palaces, etc., requires you to train your creativity in order for you to actually build those markers, right? So as an example of usage of creativity is creating a marker for an intangible concept. An intangible concept is basically a concept that is unable to be sensed. So cannot describe it using the bodily senses, no color, shape, smell, taste, etc. No physical attributes. An example, the word fun. There is no physical attribute of fun. Everything else, any explanation of it is metaphorical. So go back to yeah, so I was exploring this because I had that Super Learner call. So let me just write that down. Inspired by coaching Super Learner. Exploring creativity as a foundation of building memory palaces and speed reading. Anyway, S16, put that up there. Gonna put skeleton this. Okay. So yeah, the person was having trouble building up the memory palace or creating a marker. So to clarify, a marker is basically an indicator or a trigger, a response within the brain to allow you to remember something that you have deemed associated with that imaginary piece. As an example, if we think of fire, the first color that you will think of is probably red. So if you're having trouble remembering fire and I ask you to build a marker, a potential marker would be anything that has red in it, like the color red. So that by association, the color red is now attributed to fire. That's really easy because fire is tangible because you can describe it, you can look at it with your eyes, you can touch it, it's pretty hot and all that. But when it comes to something intangible like fun or sadness or international trade. I don't know. Like I don't know why that's the first thing that comes to my mind. That's when it gets pretty difficult because it's going to be hard to turn something that is supposedly tangible into intangible. To counteract that, we'll need to use creativity. So that's why I thought about training creativity, or like if I were to write a post about training creativity, how would you do it, right? So let's see. So let me just, I'll do TOC later. How about this? Let me focus on this for now. Okay. So that's the thing. How does one train creativity? So I'll just put this away for a sec. So like, how does one train creativity? It's a bit strange. Like, it's not like a muscle. Well, a lot of people would describe it like a muscle. But the thing is, I've always imagined creativity to be another completely new character or a living body within the body. So when you have creativity as a character or as a person within you, it also has its own dietary needs, forms of exercise, habits that are positive to it. You know, creativity can be sedentary if you don't treat it well enough. Creativity can be obese, where, you know, if you don't treat it well, if it's not healthy, then it's not going to feed you the amount of energy that supposedly creativity can provide in the first place. However, we put creativity on a pedestal. The thing is, it's not creativity that enlightens us. It's applied creativity that excites us the most. So when we try to explore that, how do you articulate it, right, is the problem here. Well, it's not a problem, but it's probably the thing that I want to explore this time. So let's have a look. What did I write here, actually? Ah, yes. Okay. So if this is the post, then we have creativity, the concept. And I've written here explicit definitions and tacit definitions. If we go to, sorry for that, it's going to be pretty broken for a bit. Creativity meaning. And we'll just go to the wiki version. Something somehow new or somehow valuable is formed. It may be intangible or a physical object. Oh, I just realized a joke is intangible. That's interesting. I'll probably explore that later on. Okay, so let's just take this and just minimize this for now. From Wikipedia. So probably in terms of how would you, like the basis or the foundation for even this post to exist in the first place. And if you're watching this, or like if anyone is watching this, I encourage you to write your own version of this post and we can compare answers. I think that'd be so cool. Like I've always wanted to do this thing where we have like wait, let me just switch the camera for a second. So like we have this thing where if we put up a post topic, like a blog post topic out on like, you know, Rome FM Twitter or whatever Twitter, and then for example, this week is how to train your creativity. I would love to see like 5 to 10 people's blog post titled "How to Train Your Creativity" and see how different it is, and then we cross compare notes. I think that'd be so sick. But anyway, I'm off on a detour already. Oh, Arvin's in the chat. Hello, hello. He says, I've always thought it as a muscle, but perspective change. When I read Big Magic, it's an energy that comes to you. Interesting. Okay. That's interesting. Okay. For your sake, I will put your exact text in there, and I will include it in this post. And I will make that tacit. Big Magic, I think, is a book I have not read yet, unless I've heard. I have Magic Thinking Big, but not Big Magic. Okay. So later on, I'll need to book. Yeah. An energy that comes to you is a very interesting way of putting it, because I see it as by forming it or by perceiving it as an energy that comes to you, creativity is external. It sounds like it. Like if you frame it that way. But then there could be a motion for creativity to be from internal, and then it goes out to external, and then it comes back in, and you get some form of output. So I've always looked at creativity as a form of conversation. It's your wonder is talking with the world, and you get to hear the answers. It's like, it's like that, right? Like creativity is asking the questions, and the world gives you the most colorful, beautiful answers, or something like that, right? Which has some overlap with an energy that comes to you. So I'm gonna highlight that for a bit. Yeah, and I wrote here "fuel for imagination," which is like stem from that. So maybe that could be a basis for it. And also, some of the most creative minds would find connections between things. That's very polymathic. So I would say polymathic integration requires a base of creativity as a foundation before initiating. And I'm not sure if I wrote anything like that. No, I did not. I have some transcripts from voice notes on polymathic integration. Let me see if this is useful. Bring up naturally, breathe, eat, think, polymath, basic people. Build a habit of making integrations, deconstructing these borders all the time. 24/7 out of habit for fun, out of the expression of their character. And more polymathic is not. This is a very unclean transcript. Okay. I'll have to look at that later on. So I might have to like listen to that later on. Anyway, that is an unclean transcript, so I'll probably full on clean that later when I post it up. But I'm not really answering the question. So like if we have defined creativity, how do we train it? If, for example, we take Arvin's point, methods according to definitions. If we go here, block ref that, how do we train our ability to gain more energy to come to us? The first thing I can think of is to increase the surface area of available activity to come to us. This means something like doing more creative things attracts more creative opportunities. This is very, very body of work, very, very body of work related, which if there's a specific someone in there that's gonna bring up the body of work, me talking about body of work all the time, I would be so. But anyway, where quantity of attempts at creative outlets leads to greater quantity and quality. Well, percentage chance, quality of creative output. I can see it being like that. I can see it being like that. So this is a method. I don't want to dumb it down like, oh, just be more creative. But it's rather to not hesitate when doing something creative so that you can become more creative. So training creativity as a side effect. No, byproduct. So we go here. This is all in intro. Put a to-do there because I need to link that once it's posted. Okay. Writing prompts. I forgot that this is actually one of the things that I wrote. That's why we have Rome, right? Because we forget a lot of things. You tell that to a memory coach, lol. Anyway, so writing prompts. I wrote writing prompts because most of the time, creativity requires a trigger before it can be initiated. Think of like, okay, I'll give a good analogy, right? Analogy. Think of a 100-meter race. The race won't start until the gun goes off. So it doesn't matter how fast the runner is. There is no race until the race starts, or i.e. the gun goes off. And the parallel of this is that creativity requires a trigger before it can be initiated. Most of the time, we could be just like bored or super relaxed, and then all of a sudden there's this sudden like integration between two thoughts, and then boom, you have something creative, or a muse captures you, as what Khalil Corazzo has said in our talk on his YouTube channel. Which actually, I should talk about that. I should actually add that in. Maybe, did I put? Okay. Yes, I did. Okay, cool. I did. Okay. So for those watching, I did an hour. I think it's an hour long interview talking about how I think, and it was with Khalil, who is a previous guest on Roam FM, and he asked me how to describe how it feels like to be visited by a muse, and I gave like a 10-minute long answer, which I have the transcript somewhere in here, but I can't be bothered to pull out the whole thing, so I just block ref the question, so that's okay. And yeah, so e.g. being captured by a muse, which I'll block ref here, which means this gives me ample opportunity to link back to interview with Khalil on his YouTube channel. I'll do a to-do there. Being captured by a muse. Observing painting. Shower thoughts. suddenly thinking about a question that pops up and you gain some form of epiphany, insight. So yes, oh, actually, this should not be nested. This should be here. The analogy is explaining this. This is the atomic note. The analogy is explaining this atomic note. Okay, hence it's nested underneath. Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. My slight confusion. I don't know why that's how my graph works. It reflects the person, right? Like it's gonna be like that for a lot of times. Anyway, creativity requires a trigger before it can be initiated. Being captured by a muse, yes. Observing a painting, shower thoughts, etc. And in this case, what it means is we can also intentionally create or manifest triggers in front of us. This can be done through writing prompts. And then I will do two things. One is I'll put two games in here. So one is one phrase game. I'll call it one phrase game. And the other is I forgot the name. I forgot what did I put it in? No. Okay. Object character. Aha, I do have it. Okay, cool. This is the COT game. Yes. Awesome. Oh, I can't believe I have a note for it. Oh, so happy. I'm actually legit like happy because I nearly forgot what was it called. Bloody hell. Anyway. Let me just have a look-see as to what is happening over yonder. Direct quote from the book is not just you choosing creativity, but is also the creativity choosing you. Yeah, that makes it more conversational, right? Which is good because it seems like it feels like the message that gets captured is requires consent to arrive at you. If I'm talking, or if I'm just alive, well, I mean, I'm alive right now, but like if I'm living, walking about, and I'm observing something, and the culmination of all my experiences up until now has turned my definition of creativity into something that is unique to me. So when I look at something, maybe a painting, maybe some kind of incident somewhere out there, all of a sudden my creativity will go out of its way to talk with the observation. And if the observation will come back with an answer, then the answer was probably creative to a certain degree. So reaching out to that point and then it coming back to me, that way the two parts are chosen, right? I guess that's one way of framing it that way. Which makes it more conversational, which is a definition that I am more likely to agree with. Having something like, for example, right, I'm going to move back to the alloy. Having something one way like this, or like static. No, one way is probably a better way of putting it. Having it go one way and then not have some form of response, like there is no loop, it feels a bit weak as a definition. So I prefer something like that. I'm gonna copy that over as well. Put that. Oh, thanks, Aravid. You're gonna be contributing a lot to my post on creativity later on once it's published. Anyway, Back to the games. Right. Writing prompts. If creativity requires a trigger before it can be initiated, then we can also intentionally manifest triggers in front of us. So this is environmental design 101. Whatever you have around you will affect how you behave, right? If there's snacks on the kitchen counter, you're more likely going to pay attention to it. Therefore, you're more likely going to want to take a bite, right? Have a snack or whatever. In this case, it's the same. If I write a prompt right in front of me, then I'm more likely to play with that prompt. So, one I've invented is, I've played this a few times. It's called the one phrase game. So, the one phrase game is basically you write a phrase, any phrase. It's like that movie quote, pick a card, any card. And you explore this phrase in three ways. One is, and I think I should do it in this order. One is to write something logical about it. So this just depends on how you define your logic. For me, it's deconstructing the phrase, defining each and every word in it, and concisely or meticulously informing the reader how each word connects to each other. Like that's an example of logical explanation. Write something emotional about it would be something like, do I have any emotional investment in this sentence? Does this trigger a memory? Does this trigger a marker in my palaces? Does this trigger something during my childhood times? Does this phrase have touch on an inherent trauma that I have? Like that's one example, or a funny joke or funny memory, right? And write something imaginary about it, which is where we talk about the realm of fiction. So this is logical, is explaining the present. Emotional is explaining the past, if there is any, right? If relevant. And imaginary is explaining what doesn't exist. The imaginary, the world of the imaginary, fiction, right? Crazy cartoon characters or colors we've never seen before, or some form of fantasy character, right? Like, what if you start involving characters from Middle Earth all of a sudden, right? It could be like that. And none of these have to be right or wrong. The thing is to remember to dedicate the time to actually commit to writing something about these. And the last one is to describe a conversation with a shadow partner to see where that might go. This is touching on the theory of being multifaceted. So I've not actually published this yet, but maybe I have. Maybe I have. No, I've not. Okay. No, I've not. This is the theory of having many internal characters within us, and these characters come out at specific conditions and specific times. And to force yourself to describe this phrase and have it as a discussion topic with a shadow partner would trigger another character within you to appear. If your logical scientific mind were to meet your emotional fictional mind, and then they talk to each other and you write it in transcript format, then that will be the answer to this one. And that's how you play the phrase game, right? You force yourself, or you create triggers, write them in front of you, and then you explore those triggers. You explore the extent of those triggers as much as you can. So that's the one phrase game. The COT game is something a little bit more fictional, a little bit more imaginary, where we have character, object, theme. And you pick one of each, write a story about them. So this is a game that I use to train my short story writing skills, because I do this for a show that I do called Temper Fables. You pick one character, or you invent one character, you invent one object, and you invent one theme, or you pick one theme, and you write a story surrounding those. This forces you to be extremely creative to create something that's sensical, or like that makes sense. Because all short story narratives, in order for narratives to be complete, they need to make sense from beginning to end. So as an example, it could be like a red tiger broadsword honor. Just made it up completely. Right? It could be like red tiger, animal species that is king of the jungle, finds a broadsword in there, signs of human contact, background of story, humans are extinct, long lost war between animal kingdom and society, and then broadsword is a sign of humans making a comeback. Red tiger warns family, and then they refuse to listen to him, maintain their honor as protector of the jungle, and refuse to participate in their daily events. And then maybe the whole jungle gets destroyed because of human attack. Right? That's just one example, right? That's just one example of something you can do with the COT game. Because it practices. It's just practice. I don't have to write the story, but it's just practice. So these prompts can help you with training creativity. At least that's how I would do it. Word generators to use. Why did I write this? Oh, I think I was writing something like put two random words together and find ways to connect them. This is a maybe. I'm not sure if this will work that well. And I'll put this away. Okay. Yeah, so those are some of the methods. It's funny that I skipped all the way to the methods and then I didn't like talk about the mindsets and the myths. I mean, I've seen this in a couple of the coaching calls where a lot of people think that their creativity is static, like you can't train it. Well, it is possible, but it really depends on your ability to inform your creative self on like how to actually train that ability to connect the imaginary and the real. And the other myth is training one's creativity cannot be systematic. It must be spontaneous. Yeah, actually, it's not that I'm a bit half-half. I disagree with this. Creativity can be systematic. What's spontaneous is epiphanies and muses. As written below, increasing surface area by training creativity leads to spontaneity. I don't know how to spell that. Okay, spontaneity of epiphanies and sudden bursts of creative energy. These are two different distinctions in the umbrella of creativity. There is the creativity ecosystem, and then there is the epiphany that comes out of it. Okay. I'll pause that for now. And I think Do bad, fast, wrong. If I remember correctly, this is an Ali Abdal link. Ali, bad, fast. Yeah. Do your best effort-wise so you can do better. I don't remember this at all. Okay, I'll just put it away. I mean, if it's useful, I'm gonna rewrite it anyway, so I think that's okay. Accept everything you create. Yeah, this is on lowering expectations. Yeah, this is actually very useful. Because all that is material to create the perfect legendary item. This is because in my realm... Okay. Whew. All right. Okay. Okay. My hands hurt for a little bit, so I need to like hold off a little bit. Let me just pause on that, drink some water, etc. With the risk of detouring you, okay, let's see, Aravind. What's the note with the TOC and how do you use it? No worry, it's not a detour. I'm actually gonna go to that right after this. I'm actually pausing just a little bit because I want to make sure that I want to make sure that what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, on the points of creativity, I wanted to not commit too much energy thinking into those 2 points, into those 2 pages notes, because I want to add on to the others as well. So that includes the TOC. So we will get to that actually. So yeah, I mean, good point. I'll stop here for now on creativity. Before I go to that part though, I guess I'll just put this away. I think, yeah. Before I go to TOC, I normally have these as headers for basically atomic notes in my digital garden. They're not exactly final. I'm still figuring it out, but to describe it, I have one header for describing the concept, advantages of knowing this concept, disadvantages of knowing it, and the character is essentially another angle from which I try to describe the impact of this concept on my knowledge graph or on the things I know, on my well-being. So an example of this is if I were to describe creativity, the concept as a character, what would it look like? What would it sound like? How would they react? How would they be excited about? Like why do they exist, etc. And then the application is the different ways in which it can be applied and or links to specific blog posts and other notes that it's used. And then the progression log is just a log of like timestamps and dates of how much this is updated over time. And the plant equivalent is, seedlings. What was it? Seedlings, trees and shit? I forgot. Seedlings, forests, and I forgot. Anyway, but mine is ores and alloys and weapons. So technically this is supposed to be an ore because I haven't actually posted this. So I'm just going to put that there. But sooner or later, this is going to be like, oh, today I wrote extra here on flaw. And then tomorrow upgraded to alloy or something like that. But for now, that's still pending in terms of its usefulness. Whew. Now, let's go into the world of tables of contents. Let me just rewrite this again. So we are back to DNP, back to here. I don't think I wrote anything here, so I'll just go to tables of contents. And this is an or. Although, I don't know if I actually wrote it already. No, I have not. Okay. Right. Next note to cover is table of contents. I also forgot there is actually another method which includes write out table of contents, but I will explore that another time. I need this here. Whew. So this is a concept I want to explore, which means I need to have some headings just to make sense of it. And I will go through these in a second. Okay, I don't actually have a definition explicitly of table of contents, but essentially it's the first few pages of a book. Headers, list of headers, titles that summarize key findings of a book with relevant page numbers as a reference. Useful for navigation. So, in the advantage, we would have useful for navigation. The table of contents is the physical embodiment of an outliner, e.g., if we have a very limited Rome graph of a book, assuming a book is a closed or constrained knowledge graph, then also Ramsey's thread is also here, so I will add it in. So shout outs to Ramsey's thread. Fantastic, by the way. Highly recommend. It's also pretty cool. And let me see. How I figured it out. Okay. So on the Rome FM account, I wrote that I didn't really understand it at first because it's true. Because this is for outliners. Oh. Oh. Right, my phone just dropped. Back. Wait. Okay. Tech falling down. Houston, we have a problem. Oh. Shit. Okay. Hopefully, is it still working? Okay, cool. Whoops, my bad. Sorry. My a little surprise of a thing fell down. The link to the thread is right there. Just posted it. I also just realized that I have a very delayed stream. Hence, I'm not getting it exactly live. Ah, well, that's okay. Anyway, yeah, so in this, I wrote it here where I've always looked at table of contents of a book as a really good way of summarizing the entirety of a book. So, going into a library and looking at the TOC of a book, you can get a good idea of what key ideas exist within the book. So outliners are essentially compressed, highly detailed versions of TOCs. But to understand the impact of that, I needed to understand the power of TOCs. And this is when I wanted to explore an example. So we are going to... Oh, a sec. This is not the proper orientation. Okay, there we go. All right, welcome to my phone camera. We are going to take a look at a table of contents. As long as I'm not linking or dropping shit in front of me, then I think it should be okay. But welcome to the table. So I've been looking at this book a lot, Thinker Toys, which is probably going to be the staple book for creativity and critical thinking and problem solving for a number of knowledge workers out there, especially those using Roam Research and any other tools for thought. But I thought that I could open this up with you because this is a book that is quite dear to me, and I've only just read like the first few pages, so I'm not even going through it, and I've written so much. But I thought that I could share the power of understanding a table of contents just through a book. So with that being said, this is Thinker Toys, second edition, by Michael Michalko. And this is the table of contents, which is pretty sick. So if you want a really quick idea of what this book is about, it's creative thinking techniques, and each chapter is a technique. So every single chapter you see here is a technique. And for the sake of the stream, and later on, hopefully, if this video is saved, I hope that YouTube saves it. I'm gonna put the COT up there so you can maybe screenshot it, pause, write notes, whatever. And the second half, which I'll just put it right there. So yeah. Now, if you're not going to be a fan of me writing on the book, well, you're going to have to look away, because writing on books is the core of how I take notes, or the core of how I've always been taking notes for so long. So don't mind me, I'm going to be writing a lot here. So technically, every single chapter is a technique. Every single chapter is a technique, which means that you should be, according to the contents, according to the intro of the book, you should be learning a new technique every single chapter, which means that if you are going through each of these, so everything past this blue line is a technique, supposedly. And how I see this is that when you look at a TOC, it just gives you an overview of what the book is about to give you. But you can reverse engineer this and guess what each of these chapters could potentially be. So let's, for example, take, let's see. Future of Fruit. Okay, so we have chapter 16, Future Fruit, Future Scenarios. Let's explore that for a bit. Now, most of the time, you look into, you go into a book, and then it has the chapter title, and then it has text, and then it has diagrams. Maybe it has, headers inside, or it has specific, text boxes to highlight specific forms of text, etc., different formats. Imagine that being compressed into one line. So imagine the Rome version of this chapter. It would be like this. It would be like, oh God, my handwriting is so bad. But it would be like chapter 16, nested block, a header, nested block, an insight, and then maybe nested block, a diagram, right? What's really good about before you start reading any book, what's really good is if you take extra time to look at the TOC, you can build questions to nest under each chapter, to guess what is actually in each chapter, so that you can have a base foundation for understanding and capturing insight when you arrive at that chapter. So if, for example, this is called Future Fruit. I'm going to write it here. It's actually pretty awkward because this is a very thick book, so I'm going to have trouble writing this. So this is about future scenarios. They're obviously going to teach you about the technique, but you can always question what future scenarios is, which goes back to the one phrase game that I was talking about before. We can take our logical questioning and ask something like, what is considered a viable future scenario? And when do you stop looking at future scenario? Is there paralysis analysis involved? Like if you think too much about the future, will you hesitate because you try to pry for too much information, etc.? And are there examples in my field, or are there examples in the field that this author is involved in, where this is very, very relevant to? So future scenarios. So this brings up two things, right? On one end, you have a table of contents that essentially summarizes the insight within this chapter under all these headers, etc. But on the other end, you have your version of the table of contents. It's not table of contents, it's table of questions. So if you share the same chapter names, but you have specific questions, then you use this as a reference for when you go through the chapter, which means you come in prepared when you're reading through something. So this is really useful for intentional reading. It's like really, really good when you're really trying to extract as much information as you can, especially information you want to remember, into your graph, into your notes, whatever, by preparing beforehand. In Superlearner, they call this SQ3R. I mean, it's a very popular reading method, right? Survey, question, and 3R means, what was it again? Survey, question, read, review. Oh, I forgot. Read, review, reflect, I believe. Anyway, SQ3R. And this is the S and Q section. If we prepare our SQ before we initiate jumping into a chapter, then we have a set of questions that we'll go through over time. Now do this for the entirety of every single chapter, and your book will be filled with marginalia all over. Like I wrote a lot. I'm writing a lot slowly but surely over time. And that makes it much more fun. It personalizes the book to your experience because your questions are being answered. But the thing is, most of the time we're like, oh, this is a very interesting book. Let's just go through it. And you just have these bare bones notes. Well, you have the book, but then you have no notes. Wouldn't it be cool if you have this prepared beforehand? So, yeah. I'm sure those who prefer a clean copy would prefer to like write the same thing on like on a post-it note, but you know, that's what makes it really fun. There we go. Read, recite, and review. Thank you. Yeah. I guess it's a repeat in my head. Yeah, read, repeat, review. Yeah. Anyway, that's, SQ3R using the TOC. That's how powerful it is. And when we, the TOC is a great foundational format to test all of these methods out. Especially when it's something that's already there for you, available, which is fantastic. I love it. I love TOCs. To be honest, there are probably going to be some very beautiful TOCs when the titles are very, very well written, because the most well written table of contents are the ones that provoke you the best in terms of what questions can come up and surface up. So yeah, that is the TOC in a nutshell. And I'm going to switch back to Rome. Put this out of the way for a sec. I'll probably play around with the book itself later on again in a bit. So yeah, I've written it here. Crafting a list of questions nested under gives you 2 types of information. Now, the cool thing about having these list of questions that you've crafted yourself is that it shows to what extent what you don't know. And what you don't know is, so much more important than what you do know. To be honest, I don't really care about what I know right now. I care about what I don't know, because that is every attempt at pushing the frontier of what I know starts off with knowing what I don't know and then embodying the learning process of absorbing that information. So starting off with what you don't know and articulating that through questions, receiving it as answers as we're reading the book, results in a growth, right? A growth for the knowledge worker. I may have written all of this already. Yeah, and I called it the rewrite exercise because I talked about it in the Rome FM episode with Ali Abdal. Because you can guess, you try to guess with your questions what it's going to be. So yeah, that's going to be a fascinating one. I forgot the exact, let me see if I can pull up the transcript. Well, no, maybe not. I'll just connect the episode itself. I can't remember the exact wording of what he said or what I said. Does TOC have a character? No. Does TOC have a flaw? Yes. Okay. Badly written TOCs cannot provoke you to start your own sets of questions. If a book has a badly written TOC, won't know the skeleton or spine, main points that drive the narrative. Yes, all notes go back to Rome for sure because it's all first draft. That's the thing. It's all first draft. And contrary to popular belief, I don't do progressive summarization. I just delete what's unnecessary. So like if I have a lot of these, marginalia and aside, and I take pictures of them, like for example, right? Like if I let's just go back to let's go to phone mode. For some books, I just take the whole picture. Like I just take my phone and I just take a picture of this, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Then I nest underneath the picture in my Rome graph what the notes could be. But of course, the best questions, the best forms of notes are the ones where you feel so compelled to want to write on the physical book that, you know, I'm not gonna stop myself from doing that. I'm always gonna prefer writing on the book rather because the haptic feedback or the 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 fun behind the touch, like the haptic pleasure of writing on the book is just first priority over anything else. So yeah, all these go back. But then the thing is, it feels like quality notes at this present time. But then weeks later, if I look back at it again, then I might just delete later on. Notes that seem like they're useful right now can be uh can be useful at the time, but then useless like months later. So as an example, we have this one. So I wrote in here, this passage relates to the oscillation in life, which is talking about the theory of tension, which I talked about in the interview with Khalil. I would totally write a post about that as well, but that's going to be quite a long time. But I'll read this for you. He said his life is like standing on a rolling ship. You're going to slip, you're going to grab onto things, you're going to fall. And it's a constant challenge to get up and push yourself to keep going. But in the end, he said, the most exhilarating feeling in the world is getting up and moving forward with a smile. So to me, I interpreted that as different forms of negative and positive energy, negative and positive forms of tension. And this quote is a good way of encapsulating that. So I would put this in my Rome graph, right? But if, say, I take another passage and then I think, oh, this is useful, I'll write something there. But then 5 months later, I look at it, I'm like, why the hell did I highlight this? And I'll just ignore it. It's fine. No one's going to care. No one's going to see. I'm not going to lose IQ points if I didn't write one of these margins in there. So, yeah. Okay. Badly written TOCs. If they're not provocative, they're not fun. Hmm. Okay, so we have looking at this now, we have concept definitions, references to tweet threads, advantages, disadvantages, and application. With a progression log, which is wrong, you should have the date. Progression log right there. So, let's see if there's anything I can pull from linked references. Because there's nothing more fun than looking at linked references. That's already there. Oh. Oh. Yes. Okay. That is useful. I'm going to put that in a bit. With a outliner, I can create gunpowder. That's actually very useful. Yeah, this specific tweet. Mark Robertson, aka at Cal Historian, shared the TOC for The Past is the Foreign Country, which is one of the books that we talked about in our podcast episode. And oh my god, look at that TOC. Right? The first line is nostalgia, which is something that I adore. I love that concept. And he's a historian, so this is like his game. Framing the past and reframings and valued attributes on continuity. Goodness me, like if I had the chance to get a printed version of this, I mean, even the book would be cool. I mean, I'll probably get the book sometime. But like even just getting a piece of paper with this TOC, I would probably just doodle all over it. It's just pretty cool. I don't remember what this is. Oh, I think this is I was testing out a writing method where emulating Rome nested blocks, but for writing blog posts. Yeah, but I haven't tested it out. Visualize, understanding articulation. Yes. Okay, let me expand on that. Sticking to advantage, I'm going to embed. This is really useful if we were to create an imaginary book. What would the yeah, so writing TOCs is a good indicator of whether or not you fully understand the field. Because if you pretend that you're about to write a book, most of the time you try to summarize the main points of said book in the in the table of contents for that book. So if you just create an imaginary book, you just title it and be like, oh, the wonders of table of contents. And then you write a TOC summarizing all the main points as a TOC. And it's a good indicator of how confident are you with the information that you have for TOCs. Well, for the field. The field of interest, rather. So yeah, it's actually very useful. Nice. It's always good sometimes that I look at my linked refs. Sometimes I don't look at my linked refs at all because it's just so big, which sucks because I know there's going to be some. And I feel like I've talked about TOC somewhere else in the graph and they're not, I can't link ref them anymore, so that's a bit sad. Yeah, I think I'm good. I think I'm good with that. getting a bit tired already. I don't think creativity needs to be covered this in any way. No, I guess not. No. And I guess the last one is this. Yeah, so that's TFC for now. And I'll leave it to this one. This one was a quick or I wrote on how to learn something new, which is related to table of contents actually, because like writing those questions on a table of contents is actually part of the process of learning something new. So it's quite relevant actually. That's why this is related. So I shall do a relate to TOC. So how to learn something new, at least the way that I do it, is that we figure out the constraints, we figure out the extent of what we don't know, and then we fill in the blanks. And I like Joel's diagram of this with the folders and networks, etc., because learning something new requires network thinking or ecosystem thinking as a foundation before we can initiate any form of new learnings. Sometimes, if we take the analogy as before of increasing surface area of understanding is needed to increase our ability to learn and also increase the chances of us learning something new. So there's that. Okay, so let's explore all this. This is definitely incomplete, and I'm getting tired, so I probably shouldn't spend too much time on this. But definitely. What's this from? Ah, from the Cato episode. Nice. Yeah, there's the increased surface area for understanding something and then building the space for us to learn something new. Most of the time, if we're obsessed too much over the same thing that we know over time, then we become a bit comfortable. And technically, learning something new is a state of discomfort, right? So let's explore that meaning. Yeah, this is where the TOC comes in for that header, so I guess I don't have to write anything more about it. This is on the power of curation. So technically curation shouldn't be in this post. This should be an or of its own. I don't know if I have. No, I don't. Yeah. I want to put one thing here in bold because that's pretty important. The the method of learning something new through a curated individual works really well because we know that they've put a lot of effort into learning that field, and we're cheating because we're like, hey, you've done the work, can you like tell me the answers? It's like you know when you know when you're when you when you uh when you have an exam and then you have your smart friend and your smart friend has all the answers, so you ask to cheat because this person knows all the answers. It's like that, right? It's like capitalizing on the arbitrage between what you know and what you don't know, and then comparing that with them, and then you're like, oh, they have all the answers. It's just easier. There's the power of curation in there. Although when I put power of curation in this specific post, oh, I need to clarify. This may or may not be a good. Oh, okay. How about this? Um, 25 years experience. Although this is not that relevant to the current post right now. To be fair, this should be its own. Okay, how about this? How would I format it? Okay, oh shit. Back to DMP. Where was that? How to learn something new. Put the block ref in there. And then I will swap. Yeah, okay. That's better. Yeah, I feel a lot more comfortable with that. And then I'll just block ref the main OR here, and then I go here and back to normal. Okay. This is, but then I shouldn't link the header. Oh, okay, I know what to do. Yeah. Oh no, actually, I shouldn't click the. No, I shouldn't link the. I shouldn't link the ref. I should link the page. Yeah. Okay, that's a lot better. A lot cleaner. Okay. Oh, nested under there, then it makes sense. Okay. And then writing imaginary book. And that's, I think, pretty much it. There's plenty more I can write in here, but I mean, like, figure out what we don't know. Freeform writing. Yeah. I think that's it for now. Okay. Wow. Oh boy. Right. That was a lot. That was a lot. Let's do an expand for everything. Okay. One more read through, and I think we should be done for the night. Yeah, I think I'm okay with this for now. So we have straight to the source. Put an audiogram from the Bohan episode. That's okay. Write imaginary book, which is a link ref to TOC, which is actually involving here. A little bit related. And then to expand more in another time. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I think we're done for now. I'm quite happy with this. So if we go back to the live stream notes, I forgot to title this. And then I'll put the URL. Yeah, okay, cool. We are done. We are, my brain is a little bit fried. We've done this for 1.5 hours, roaming out. Roam out, like Transformers. My name is Romtimus Prime. What's the name of the Allspark? Yeah, there we go. The Allspark. What's the Rome equivalent of the Allspark? Technically, this is like circular. It looks like a bracket. Anyway, yeah, that's pretty much it. The end of this Rome session. Hopefully, this this live saves. I'm pretty sure it does. I've also just realized that I didn't actually add any stream markers, so I can't really figure out where all the markers are for these things. Oh, it's okay. I mean, I have all the notes written on the page, so it's fine. Yeah. Hopefully this once again, hopefully the stream saves. Thank you so much if you have taken the time to stay with me up until now. Maybe you're writing concurrent notes in relation to everything that I've done here. Maybe you have some disagreements and agreements. Perfectly fine. You can write it in the comments below. I've been looking at the chat, and Aravind, you've been a very, very helpful in clarifying a lot of these things, especially with bringing in the definitions, etc. So it's good to have more eyes on my notes so that I can add more info. And of course, this live is out there, so anyone who wants to, take my notes, you can just pause and look at all the stuff. So yeah, that's it for now. Thank you so much, and I will see you another time. So take care, and bye-bye.